just like that, it is time once again for another lovely edition of the Grunge Bible Podcast. This is episode number 154, coming to you the first episode of March 2024. We've got Chris Salona and Ethan Shalloway here. I'm Chris, and this is Ethan. And Ethan, how are you?
I'm Ethan. I'm doing well.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. Hope everybody out there is doing well. Yeah, it was kind of a melancholy Saturday afternoon, I think is the way that I'm going to describe this. Just kind of, it's nice outside. I wish I was outside, you know. I wish I was doing something over there, but I got nothing much to do, so we're chilling. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. How about you, Chris? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's raining here. It's raining where I am.
Is it raining where you are?
That's all I could think to ask. Yeah, man, I don't know. I just kind of feel a little mellow today. Not the most excited or chipper. Just, you know, it's just one of those points. So yeah, I don't know really how I feel right now.
It's one of those weekends, we talk about it a lot. Like, you're free, you have some plans, some skeletons of plans that you need to do.
Way too ambiguous right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very ambiguous, and you just like, do I want to be really productive or do I want to be anti-productive?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's tough too, because like our lives are about to get really busy here in the next probably month or two, and we've got things that we're looking forward to that are maybe like a month or two away, and a lot of big events going on. And it's always the weird situation where you have the time in the interim, the time in between, and you're like, okay, well, I need to use this time wisely, but like if it was up to me, I'd just kind of like pass through it real quick. And I'm like stuck between deciding how to approach that. I was like, I just want to like teleport through this week and get through another one and keep moving forward. But I know I should take the time to take the time. So there's no answer, you know, you just got to figure it out.
Yeah. Ooh, we are off to a hot start here at the Grunge Bible.
Yes. We've got another heater, which is great because
we got a heater for everybody out there.
We're going to get really existential today and finally give the people what they've been probably waiting for a long time. We've been dangling this carrot in front of the masses for far too long, for probably most of the 3 years that we've been doing this podcast. And we're doing the Good Will Hunting episode today. We went back into the lab last night and we watched it both, made some final notes, and just it kind of freshened it up a little bit, you know. Right. You look at it with a current perspective, but one of my favorite movies of all time, one of your favorite movies of all time, and one of these weird offshoot episodes that we do that doesn't really have a lot to do with grunge, but a surprisingly high amount of people have been excited and requested this episode whenever we've discussed this movie or kind of teased the fact that we wanted to do something with it. So the day has finally arrived.
Yeah, there has been a lot of conversations between us over the years. I mean, you have a tattoo about it, don't you, Chris?
I do have a tattoo of this movie.
Yeah, so it has some just lore going back for 8 years at least, probably more from first time you've seen it. And I mean, you got a stacked cast. I mean, Robin Williams is one of my favorite actors and does incredible monologues over the years, and a lot of work that he's done. And you got Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and you know,
Minnie Driver, Casey Affleck, the young hotshot.
Yeah, and they were young, and they, you know, now the career is everything is so different now. So it's like looking back, and it's so cool. So great movie, and we're looking forward to getting to that. But first, we do have some people to thank. Some Patreon supporters that are there every day, even on the offshoot days, and we have stuff like this, and that's why we love them.
Yes, we do. We love them every day of the week, every day of the month. So as you know by now, we've got 3 tiers over on Patreon, a $2, $5, and $10 tier. And we like to thank the members of the top tier every week because they're really moving the needle to make this podcast continue to go forward. And if you're interested, and if you're kind of mulling it over, you've been with us for a while, this is another great time to hop on the Patreon train. You know, we're 2 episodes away from the 3rd anniversary of this show. So as we begin another year of the podcast, I feel the same way, Ethan. Like, holy shit, where did the time pass? It's like that the gift from Saving Private Ryan of like Matt Damon's face as it morphs to like the old man. That's how I feel right now. But nonetheless, if you want to assist us in continuing to make this for another 3 years, perhaps you can join up at any of the Patreon levels, and we will thank you when you do that. But right now, I would like to thank the top tier supporters. And their names are Russell, What the Fuck Is Up Denny's, Sherry Matthews, Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey, Lauren Irene, Millie, Nikki 6, Pile of Punk, Chris LSMS, King Buzzo Stole My Hair, Keith White, Granny Grunge, Jade Mercado, Jamie Lynn, Carlene Salona, Gochu John, Fuck Soup, Faith Bittner, Eric R. Berry, Apona, D-Boat, Doug Endy, Down in a Hole, Flat Out Fucked, Eddie Vedder Got Me Through My Second Divorce, Corden Stewart, Kara K, Black Hole Sean, and the Blue Owl. That is the consistent force that we have supporting us every step of the way.
Thank you all so much. I hope we have some more people to talk about next week.
Oh,
because
it's been a little bit again. These droughts
God
creep
knows
up
we
on
need
us.
it. Yeah, God knows we need it. Exactly. Oh, man. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think it's time for some This Day in Music. I was trying to think of maybe some other banter, but we're just going to move right into it.
Yeah, I think so. This is a pretty light one, although a few instances of consequence here. I didn't expand the search this week to try to include other pop culture figures, but we'll keep it short and sweet here. This is March 4th, and we'll start off in 1986, a somber day, one that I think is of great notoriety to us, because on this day in 1986, Richard Manuel passed away at the age of 42. One of the greatest voices, I think, of his generation, and certainly, at the crux of what the band was doing back in the day. I mean, his falsetto voice, his ability to play piano, and just his lyricism and his ability to deliver those thoughts and images to the listener, really, really second to none, I think, and somebody who's inspired us a great deal over the years, even in death.
It's crazy that it's been almost 40 years since he passed away.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's sad. Always sad, but I think he was like 40. What is it, 42?
He's 42, yeah.
Something else. It's a long time ago.
That is a long time.
So moving on, in 2015, we have Daryl Hall and John Oates confirmed that they were suing cereal maker Early Bird Foods & Co. over the company's use of the name Hall & Oates for their granola bars. I feel like Ben & Jerry's has some like hollow notes or
they have Cherry Garcia,
right? I know. Oh yeah,
they've got a lot of things like that. But this is a safe space for Ben and Jerry's. I'm a big fan of theirs.
Not if they're just ripping off a hollow notes.
Well, this wasn't Ben and Jerry's. This was the Early Bird Foods Food and Company. This is one of those instances, Ethan, where I love how it happens when there's always a weird This Day in Music history type thing. That the other person ends up having to read other than the person who compiled the list. So like I pulled these this morning, and I'm so happy that that's the one that you had to read, because you're probably just like, what the hell? What great marketing though, like Hall & Oates, like Haulin oats, like you're just hauling so many oats in this granola bar.
You haul oats.
You haul them, we'll stall them.
Exactly.
That's incredible. I need to look up the results of that.
I want to buy some.
Well, probably. I mean, if they sued, you're probably not gonna be able to buy them anymore.
Well, did they win? I don't know.
I'm sure they probably won. It's pretty blatant. Hall & Oates. It's so ridiculous, but I love it.
It is kind of ridiculous, but
yeah, it's fucking great.
Yeah, that's all we have on here. Just those two things.
That's it. That's all you need. It. Now we can get into the
short and sweet
meat and potatoes here of Good Will Hunting. Once again, this is the latest iteration of our television and or film reviews, and we've got another television review coming up here pretty soon. As officially now, you and I have both finished the OC, and if you had any doubt as to whether or not we were going to dedicate an episode to that in the near future, I think it may be time that you stop listening to us, because of course we're going to do that. So that'll come in time, but right here, right now, we are going to talk about Good Will Hunting, one of our favorite movies we've ever seen. And Ethan, I have to ask, do you remember the first time you watched this movie, or maybe the context in which you were introduced to it?
Not really, no. I'm actually, I think I was thinking about that and trying to remember, and it's kind of one of those movies that played on FX or played like I just was on TV and I'd watched like bits and pieces growing up. Like I felt like I was always watching like this movie or The Green Mile or Shawshank Redemption, like those classic movies that are always on. Like my dad
always on one of those television channels. Yeah,
IFC. We'd pop in we'd pop into movies and kind of watch them. So collectively, like when I was younger, I feel like I watched a bunch of movies, but like there was a lot of segment, it's kind of in and outs and stuff.
Right.
So I don't have like I remember watching it in college. I think we watched it a few times. I think we watched it at least once together. But it was one of those that was probably where it first like really spoke to me.
Yeah.
But I had those times. It was like I need to go watch it again, and then I, sat down and watched it for quote the first time or something.
Yeah, when it counted in a way.
When I knew what was going on. When I was, Will.
Right. Exactly.
That was me. How about you, Chris? Where'd your relationship start with it?
Yeah, I do remember it. My older brother had seen it and he was like, hey, like you should watch this movie. Like it's set in Boston. So I was like, say no more. I was like, I didn't even want to listen to the rest of his explanation or his campaign as to why I should watch it. I remember I must have been, I don't know, maybe in between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And I remember one night, like I went to bed in the summertime and like I did the classic, like under the sheets, like with like my little iPod Touch and the headphones in, whether it was on Netflix or just, a contemporary of Netflix at the time or something on my phone. I remember watching it. I started it like way late and I stayed up, until probably like 3:30 in the morning to finish it. And I don't remember the actual essence of the movie really setting in for me at that time, but I remember I was like, oh, like I like this movie, it's interesting. And then once again, I think as I got older, maybe later in high school, then certainly in college, I went back to it and approached it. Like I vividly remember though that first time the intro scene where like all of like the books are kind of magnified and like the opening credits, which is interesting for a movie when you have the opening credits like that and it's naming all of the actors and producers and whatnot. I remember watching that scene at the time, but then it kind of went on from there, and it didn't take long for it to become what it is for me today and for you today. As I think this is the movie that I've seen more than any other movie.
Really, is this your number one?
I think this is my number one. Yeah, the only other candidate I think would be The Big Lebowski, but this one I think for longevity's sake because I was introduced to it before The Big Lebowski.
Not The Town.
No, that's third. any Boston movie, chances are I have seen it many times because I have to. I'm from New England. We've got to stick together here. I got to stick together with my boys.
That's right. So speaking of boys, so let's talk about Southie for a second.
South Boston, man.
Yeah. So they talk about Southie in there, and it's funny because I didn't know about. I didn't really like. It's not something I picked up. I really thought about in the movie until I know that you had something JJ from South. So that came up, and so is that just is it like like what is
what is Southie? Are you asking?
Right, like the Boston, like is it a very much different than like northern Boston?
Yeah,
like
so
South
it's a distinct neighborhood in the sense that at least at the time, around the time this movie was shot, and certainly before it was kind of more of a blue collar, like densely populated area of the city, just with a lot of blue collar workers, certainly not like college educated people, lower income, that type of thing. Lately though, probably in the last like 15, 20 years, it has become the like stereotypical landing spot for any recent graduate that wants to move to Boston. Like everybody lives in Southie. And it's funny because the L Street. Yeah, exactly. The L Street Tavern, which like the boys hang out with in the film, like that's still there, and nice. Like that's a hangout for like all of like the 23-year-olds who just got a business degree and are living in Southie, and they go and commute to Back Bay to go to work or Cambridge or something. And I
wonder how many times the bartenders hear like, you like apples or something?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Every fucking time. It's like the equivalent of like anytime an actor has like a prominent line in a film that gets quoted all the time. Like how many times people must come up to them and be like, "Hey."
Yeah.
Yeah, it must happen all the time. But yeah, that's kind of the background. A little bit of Southie, and I kind of love. I don't know. It's this the I think the concept of this movie is so interesting, and they couldn't have picked better people, I think, to carry out that concept and to act it out. Um, Robin Williams for me is one of the most fascinating public figures, I think, of the 20th and 21st centuries, and it's wild to me how hilarious he could be, and then you put him in a serious role like this, and he just absolutely brings the house down. He's my favorite part of this film, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be what it is without him.
Yeah, he is very special. He has a few, like you said, monologues. So does Matt Damon. They kind of all do. They're very good at that in this movie. But he's so locked in to. I mean, he is exactly the professor that I would expect and want to see. Is a well written character. You know what I mean? Like it was great, and they picked Robin for a reason, and it was well done, very well done. Obviously, he got an award for best supporting actor, an Oscar for that.
Yeah,
And
well deserved. I think something that's interesting for me about this movie, and obviously, I think if we're listening to this, most people listening have probably seen the film, but you know the main crux of it is obviously Robin Williams' character Sean McGuire being a therapist to help Matt Damon's character Will Hunting through a lot of shit, you know, his upbringing and past traumas, and you know, just this kind of tendency he has to isolate and self-sabotage a lot of different things. And you know, Robin Williams' character's past comes into it a lot, and his relationships and everything like that. But I remember watching it for the first time, realizing and understanding that it was really my first exposure to any sort of kind of look into therapy in a way. And I remember being really fascinated by it because I had not gone to therapy or anything, you know, when I was watching the movie, and it was really fascinating to me. And I love the fact that, you know, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote this, you know, and they both had very prominent roles in it. And I think, you know, because of that, they were both able to articulate a lot of the nuance maybe that they had in their heads with it. But it, you know, I just kind of love the concept of that, of, you know, using somebody like Robin Williams in a serious role like that, you know, in a setting, you know, like therapy, where, you know, certainly the further back you go into history, you know, in the 90s, maybe it wasn't as commonplace to discuss that as much as it certainly is now. So I kind of, you know, think about those concepts, and I'm fascinated by them, and the movie works as good as it does because of, I think, the setting.
yeah, I was, you know, learning. I remember learning that Ben and Matt wrote it, and that is like such a, because they were pretty young too. I mean, Matt, they were
in
only
20s.
Yeah, I think they were like, yeah, exactly. And to write something so, I don't know, you could say it's deep and philosophical and very existential, or however you want to say it. I mean, they did an awesome job, and they obviously they put it, because Ben Affleck, they're both from Boston area. I know Ben is, right?
So. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so cool that they obviously time and place, and they played off of all the schools around there, and then of course, like, the girlfriend wants to move out west, and you're faced with a decision and to get out of the, like, it's very well done. And because that can be pretty cliche, I guess, like getting out of the hometown or getting out of, like,
Totally. Yeah.
like those type of movies come, you know, a dime a dozen or whatever, however you want to say it. So really happy that it was, like, executed well. Obviously, I was just thinking that, you know, it's like the OC. You know, Sanford is like
exactly.
like
There's so many parallels here.
And they wanted to go to the east, and of course they want to go west. It's how the coasts work. If you're on the east coast, you want to go to the west, and if you're on the west coast, you want to go to the east. And yeah, it's really a lot of. And now that I'm older too, now that I'm leaving my 20s and stuff, seeing and hearing the monologues of him talking. And I guess one place we can go is, like, right in the beginning when they first meet each other. You know, Will sees Mr. McGuire's painting, and it's you know, it's your tattoo, right, Chris?
It is my tattoo.
I would say this is can't really see it.
You can't really see it. Yeah, that's for the Patreon. Shirtless
Actually,
pics.
do you want to talk about the tattoo for a second?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to
This
talk
is
about
important.
the tattoo.
Yeah.
So this movie, its meaning to me has changed as I've gotten older, right? As I think all good art does. And when I was, I suppose I was 23 or 24, I was going through a really, really shitty time in my life. And I watched this movie again. And, the scene is Will Hunting walks into Sean Maguire's office and he sees this painting. And he uses this painting to kind of extrapolate a bunch of meaning about Robin Williams' life. And he's like, you married the wrong woman. And he's like, have you heard the phrase, any port in a storm? And he's like, I think you're in a big fucking storm based off of this painting. Like, I think you really fucked up and you have a lot of regrets about your life and you're afraid and you're just looking for any sort of refuse. And that phrase, any port in a storm, really resonated with me at that time when I was watching this movie, I think back in 2020 or maybe early 2021, in the sense that at that time in my life, I understood that phrase a lot. Like, I was looking for just about anything to kind of give me shelter from a lot of the difficult things that I was dealing with. And I think a lot of the difficult feelings that I had at the time. And it really, I thought about it a lot. And, when you're looking for any type of port in a storm, right? I mean, that can just as easily lead you to good, positive things as it can to bad, negative things that can make that storm worse. It's kind of like that. Any place is better, but here. And when you're just looking to leave someplace, you don't really have the thought of where you're going in your mind. And, sometimes if you're not careful and if you don't have a good support system, it can lead you to maybe places that are even more destructive than the one you're trying to leave. So I got the tattoo with that in mind. Number one, I just thought it was, a cool reminder of that movie, but specifically that feeling that I got from it is just kind of a reminder that, hey, when things are bad, like, you got to make sure you're looking out for yourself even still when you're trying to get away from those bad things and to be mindful and to take care that you're trying to travel towards places that are going to be good for you and you're doing things that are going to be good for you to help you get better. So that's kind of what I took from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's awesome tattoo. Like, it was well done. Now, I guess it was one of your earlier ones, huh?
Yeah, I think it was my second or third tattoo, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, so it's really interesting. So the next day they meet up on the park bench, and they have this dialogue, or they start talking, and Robin Williams starts going on. He's like, I heard what you said about the art last night. It got me thinking. And then he goes on to talk about a bunch of stuff, and then gets, like, I'm sure that if I asked you about art, you'd probably give me a skinny on every book ever written. You're pretty tough. And if I asked you about war, you'd probably just read off Shakespeare and all this stuff. And he's like, but if you ever, do you know what the Sistine Chapel smells like? Have you ever actually, stood and looked at a beautiful ceiling? And he kind of goes on and talks about love and meeting a girl and kind of talks about the experiences of life. And he kind of goes through, like, his life. Obviously, like, I would assume that he has smelt, the Sistine Chapel. And he kind of goes through these things where, and I remember being a kid and maybe having interactions, maybe either with at least my father, or then other people, that coaches or somebody, where I'm so confident, I know what I want, I know what to do. And I'm like saying that you don't understand, where they're looking at me with 25 years of experience that,
you don't understand.
Like, yeah, that, like, I can, like, physically cannot understand until time passes. And, it really spoke to me, because I felt like in that moment, I was like, man, I was like that all the time. You kind of jump to conclusions so fast, and you don't really, let the story unfold. You try to, like, figure it out fast, and like, yeah, and have ownership over stuff that has never happened to you and you can't really speak on.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many things in life that, you need to experience. Like, I love the idea of smelling a room. Like, can you really, like, put yourself in that position? And that's really, I think, an important quality to understanding like things.
Yeah. And that scene right there, I think it really develops the through line that I think carries the rest of the film, in the sense that all of those things that Will was speaking about, he's able to speak about because he's a fucking genius, right? And he's got this photographic memory and he remembers everything and he's really, really smart. But Sean Maguire, Robin Williams' character, is able to speak out about them because he's experienced it. And the through line there is that he's given himself and developed the vulnerability to put himself into situations like that. And I thought it was really interesting that, Will Hunting rips the painting apart because he's like, you played a big hand and you lost, the love of your life, the thing you invested everything into died. And now you're too much of a pussy to put your chips into the table and ante up again and take another thing. When they're sitting on that park bench and he's like, you don't know what the Sistine Chapel smells like. You don't know what it's like to fall in love. You don't know what it's like to have your friends die around you. You don't know what it's like to see your wife pass away from cancer. All of those things were the direct result of him putting his chips on the table and being vulnerable and, sometimes recklessly throwing yourself into situations. I mean, that's how you live your life. That's how you develop relationships. And I think this movie does a really good job in the way that all of the characters interact with one another, because you can pretty much tell that everybody, in the way they interact, they're all informed by their past. Sean Maguire is informed by his past and losing his wife, and Will is formed by the past abuse that he suffered in the sense that he can't connect to anybody, and he'd rather push everyone away. And even, his girlfriend Skylar is formed by her past of losing her father when she was very young, in the sense that she will, pretty much throw anything out if it means being able to develop a meaningful relationship with somebody. And the way that all of these different takes on how you make it through a day and how you develop your life and curate what's important to you, the way they all come together, I think, is what makes this movie great.
Yeah, that's well said, for sure. And then you have the other side, Professor Lambeau coming in. And
this is Professor Lambeau.
And it's interesting because the whole movie, he sees Will as an opportunity and kind of an opportunity and potential. Potential is a great word that people use all the time. All the only thing that they think about is potential, what they could be, and usually that's a projection of what they want them to be and what it is, and that's how this movie is, obviously,
and what they'd want to be themselves.
Right. Yeah, and so this movie is a lot of, Will is in this situation because he sees a math problem, and I looked it up, and apparently it's not that hard to. If you knew a little bit about graphs, it would be pretty easy to figure out.
Oh,
but I don't know. It doesn't matter. So, and then he gets in trouble. So he gets him out, and he's like, "Come work for me while you finish school, and then we can get you a job." And then, of course, he doesn't know if Will doesn't know if he wants to do it, and Dr. Lambeau is getting really frustrated because he doesn't know why anybody would, ruin, stifle away this gift. And he was old roommates with Sean, correct?
Yep.
They were roommates back in college before he was a medal winner.
Before he won the Fields Medal.
And they have a really dynamic relationship that you could see, because it wasn't the first, person that he reached out, to help Will.
Take him
he
in
was the fifth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting because it wasn't his first, because they obviously had disagreements and they didn't want to if they didn't have to work together, I don't think they wanted to.
Yeah.
But then they were a kid.
Yeah, and they're living such different lives. I mean, they start almost identical. They're enrolled in the same programs and they're roommates. And then, Professor Lambeau goes on to win the Fields Medal. And then, Sean Maguire goes on to counsel veterans, and, he's teaching at Bunker Hill Community College in such a way that I think Lambeau's character is so hung up on appearances and accomplishments that, he looks at Will in the sense that, Will has the opportunity to be successful in the same way that I am, and any other path that results in different types of success is failure. Lambeau looks at Maguire as a failure, that he's teaching at a community college and he's got a little room where he counsels people. He's like, what contribution is that? How great is that? It's not very great. And you can see this tug of war developing over Will's future, where Sean wants to give him the space to decide what he wants to do. There's that great scene where they're standing there. He's like, "What do you want to do?" He's like, "I ask you a simple question and you can't answer it." He's like, "Only you can figure that out." And Lambeau is like spoon feeding him this future because he's like, "I am who I am because I was pushed and I was told what to do. So I need to do this for Will."
Yeah. And you brought up, you wrote down here that one of the scenes they thought was very interesting. I guess the burning of the paper in Professor Lambeau's office.
Oh yeah,
because they got into a big argument. They had been working on something, and basically it was that classic scene where it's like this shit is
it's
easy
a fucking
to me.
joke. I wish you could do this so I wouldn't have to sit here and watch you fuck it up all the time.
I don't want to be explaining to people all day how to do stuff. Yeah, and yeah, he ended up burning. He set fire to the paper, and you could see him run over and try to
Lambeau runs over and tries to put out the fire. And I watched it last night, and it never kind of struck me the way that it did last night. But it's just it was a testament to kind of how Lambeau's life became so singular in the sense that his career and his work is the only thing that mattered to him, so much so that like this person who he's supposedly trying to help is fed up and he's walking out, and rather than trying to hear what he's having to say and level with him and assist him, he's so worried about this paper and he runs over. It's really pathetic looking. He's holding this charred piece of paper trying to put it back together, and there's no hope. I mean, it's charred beyond recognition, and it was just kind of a good analogy, I think, to where Lambeau's life led him, and the very thing that I think Will was trying to avoid becoming, in the sense that he's like, I don't want to be locked up in a room doing long division all day,
explaining to people how to do long division. Yeah, and ultimately, I think everybody knows the story, but he has to make a decision, and he ended up stealing. Taking the advice from Sean and steals his line. He has to go see about a girl, and he makes a decision. And you can see, obviously Sean knows that he's helped somebody, figure themselves out, and the journey's not done. I guess it's another scene that we could talk about when he goes back and talks to Ben Affleck's character, and it's like, I'm gonna stay here and lay brick all
Chucky,
all the
I
time
wanted
with
to
you.
talk about that scene. Yeah. Cause I think that one
that's the one that got him to.
It was just as pivotal as I think any conversation that Will and Sean had together. They're at the job site, I think, at the end of the day. And he's like, "So how's your lady friend?" And he's like, "Oh, she's gone to California." And Will's talking to Chucky about the fact that he'll be here doing the whole life. And Will's arrogance, he thinks he knows what Chucky's gonna say. He's like, cut the shit with all of this. I owe it to myself to do this. And Chucky's like, no. He's like, you don't owe it to yourself. Fuck you. You owe it to me and to any of these guys, because we would do anything to have what you have. And I remember when I was younger, I kind of laughed at this line, but it really, as I've gotten older, it makes a lot of sense. And he says, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna be 50 and I'm gonna still be doing this shit. And how quickly time moves, and how quickly you can maybe lose track of things that could age your situation. And, if Will sat on his gift, time goes by so quickly. It was interesting too, because something else that Robin Williams' character was talking to Matt Damon's character about when they were in therapy was kind of the loyalty aspect of their friendship, of Will's crew, right? Will, Chucky, all those guys, and how loyal they were to one another. And that same scene where he's like, "What do I want to way out of here for? Tomorrow I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna be 50." He's like, "The best part of my day is the 10 seconds that I walk up to your door, and I think maybe today's the day that he's gone, that he went out to go do something different, no goodbyes, no nothing, and he just did it." And that's like how strongly you feel for your friend, that you would rather them do that if it meant it was going to help themselves, and also at the same time leaving you high and dry and without your best friend. But it's just kind of the loyalty and the relationship that two friends can have, that I always found that to be really powerful. It's like how selfless you could be, that you want that for them, even though it's going to make your day to day not as bright.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not an easy place to come to.
No, and I think that's what did it. That's what got Will to go out to California.
Yeah, and yeah, it's kind of like, we don't know how it went after that. There's no.
I love the fact that it does. You have no
Right.
idea.
Right.
You know, you don't even know if he gets there. I mean, he was taking that beater car all the way
He was
across the
driving. That's
country.
literally what I was thinking. I was like, oh, he's driving? Like,
This movie is not. It was so funny. Like I was watching that movie last night, and I was thinking about like stuff that like I had no business thinking about. I'm like, could you imagine like the vehicle reliability? I'm like, oh, like do you think he packed like his social security card and stuff? And I'm just like, that's got nothing to do with the film, but like that's where my head was at, I guess, at the time watching him go west on the Mass Pike.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too, and then just how Robin Williams played the perfect Sean Maguire, and he gets to be. Every time I think of Sean Maguire, I think of Robin Williams.
Yeah, seriously,
he plays a very specific character, but
yeah. This movie was really powerful for me too, as I mentioned earlier, in the sense that it was really the first thing that I took a look at that was kind of centered around therapy, and it was also really the first thing that introduced me to, you know, what defense mechanisms are, you know, how people can self-sabotage, and also I think that the trauma that people can harbor and the guilt that they can feel over things that aren't their fault, and obviously the breakthrough scene where Maguire repeatedly says it's not your fault, it's not your fault. I didn't really understand it at the time, but as the older I've gotten, the more powerful it's become, you know, to kind of how hard that is to lay down those things in your past that you experienced, and recognize that, you know, something bad that happened to you, you don't have any culpability in. And that was something that was really powerful for me. And I just think like Sean Maguire, you know, Williams's character is just so unbelievably steady and comforting. And just the way that he relates, how warm he is, how patient he is. And I love it at the end, you know, he's like, do what's in your heart, son, you'll be fine. And that reassurance, you know, such simple words, but they carry a lot with them.
Yeah, he really was a very consistent character. And, you know, as I get older too, and I'm not old, but I'm 30, but like, you know, there's definitely a line where you know, people still want to help me and see me do well, but I'm getting older in the sense that like the 18 to 22 year olds, the younger generation is now like, it's something that I can, you know, I look to, like, it's kind of our job. You know what I mean? Like it's our job to kind of help share what we've learned or share, like, cause you don't know everything, but, you know, say if it's in sports or people going through high school and stuff. And, I don't know. I think about that a lot. I'm thinking about that a lot recently, like what kind of impact on the next set of kids and, you know, people making decisions to go out west, like, you know, and why that's a good decision to experience all that stuff and then kind of use those experiences to figure out the rest of your life.
Yeah. And in a way, the responsibility that you have to kind of be there for people and kind of pass that along. And that's something too, I think this movie talks a lot about responsibility as well, and kind of growing up. And once again, that's something that it means something different to me now watching it as it did when I was, you know, 14, you know, watching it for the first time. And I think about that responsibility a lot, even as it relates to my own family. You know, I'm not a kid anymore in the sense that I think, you know, it kind of comes back around in the sense that when I was younger, it was all about my family helping me. And now I'm at the point where I feel the obligation to be there for people and be strong, and to kind of shoulder that weight. And it's just kind of, as you get older, you're able to kind of take on those things and you feel that responsibility. And you know, it's interesting. It's not a tremendously long film. I couldn't even tell you the period of time within the film that elapses, maybe 6 months or so. But I mean, how much ground is covered in it, is really impressive, and it's really special. And you can pick out different parts of the film, and gain different lessons. I mean, even Lambeau and Maguire, they mend their relationship, and they're on the path to becoming friends again. And I love that scene. You know, they're yelling at one another, screaming about, you know, if you push him, he's like, I am who I was because I was pushed. And he's like, it's not about you. You know, he's not you. Do you get that? And then Will walks in, and I love it. Lambeau leaves, and Maguire just says, you know, he's like, don't worry about that. A lot of that stuff goes back a long way. And just kind of how that, you know, a lot of ghosts that we might have in our past, even if they could be with different people, but they resurface in different relationships. And that's why I think it's easiest, you know, for our long-term health, you know, you deal with things as they come up, and you got to talk about things. And that was a lesson that I gained from this movie too.
Yeah. Also, I guess like talking about that relationship. I mean, it's like who knows how closely in contact they were until he came back up and then kind of re-entered his life, and then they kind of fought it out. But you could tell when Will stepped in the room that there was like a sense of like, they got over it, and then like
it's like
Lambeau's
a unity
like,
of focus almost.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna, I was just stepping out. I was just leaving because they knew that they did want what's best for him, and and I thought that was really interesting because there's a lot of people that have relationships that are 25 years old, right, and they've seen a lot. Think about marriages and stuff, or like
long time.
Yeah, and like things obviously are not always perfect, and sometimes like shit happens, and then like I feel like somebody like, what was that? And be like, oh, like that's just it goes back a long way. You know what I mean? It's just like that's how the relationship is, and you can kind of put it on and or put it past and move on. And I thought that although those two characters like were at each other's throat for a little bit, they do mean a lot to each other, and get a lot of that in life too.
Yeah, because it's interesting because I think they both envied the other person. Because Lambeau had all of the professional success, but by all accounts, by the fact that he was flirting with these young college girls all the time, like he probably didn't have a wife at home, and probably didn't have that experience that Sean Maguire had. And they both kind of harbor that envy over the other side of the coin that they don't have.
They were completely opposites. You
can totally see that, and it's really interesting. I love the fact that they were MIT roommates too, because you can kind of see they start in the same place, and then just how quickly paths can cross. And let's think about that too, as it relates to people that we know, people that maybe we lived with, or we were doing the same thing and had the same life at a certain time. You look at it now, 8-10 years later, how different we all are, and how different the things we're doing are. Everybody charts their own path.
Yeah, and Will probably like saw the difference between the two of them, and when he talked to Sean, he's like, all right, if I go take this job, I'll end up like Lambeau, or if I go see about a girl in California, I could save a kid's life just like he's saving mine.
Yeah, and I think a cool lesson that Maguire taught Will Hunting in the film is, you have to know what you want to do. And if you follow your heart and you do what's in it, nobody can tell you that you did the wrong thing. And going back to that argument that Lambeau and Maguire had, it's one of my favorite scenes. And once again, this was one that I kind of, bold-faced last night when I was making my notes. They're arguing, and Maguire says, I know who I am and I'm proud of what I do. It was a conscious choice. I didn't fuck up. And he delivered those lines with such conviction that you knew, like he didn't regret it for a second. He's like, I'm proud of what I do. He's like, I made this decision to do this. It wasn't because I wasn't pushed, or it wasn't because I was, asleep at the switch and I just woke up and boom, here I am, not winning Fields medals like you. He's like, this is what I'm doing. And there's so many different metrics for what being successful is. And I think that's something that we should be teaching more often than we are, that success means different things to different people. And I think they're all valid because we can all be successful in our own ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got a taste of that when he was talking to Will about the baseball game. Was it a playoff game?
Game 6 of the 1975 World Series. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most iconic home runs in baseball history. It's hilarious because they lost the World Series that year. But Pudge Fisk's home run, waving it fair. Oh man!
And he was like, "Did you see it?" He's like, "No."
It's like, fuck no! I was having a drink at a bar with my future wife.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, "I gotta take it back for a minute."
Yeah. I mean, talk about putting your chips on the table. You give up your ticket to Game 6. I mean, he didn't know Pudge was gonna hit a homer, but I mean, that's Game 6. I love that he's like, I don't care if Helena Troy walks in the bar. That's Game 6. So good.
Yeah, that would be such a. I mean, I wonder if I would do the same thing. Yeah. You have to have a really good feeling,
That's the thing. I mean, and when you have those good feelings, it leads you to do things that are maybe outside of what you would think you'd normally conduct.
Absolutely.
But hey, you got to do what's in your heart because you'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got to know for sure. You know, you gotta Like you said, if it's what
And
you
if
want to
not,
do.
you just say "fuck it," give it a shot. And that's one of Skylar's lines when she's trying to convince
Yep.
Will to go to California. She's like, "I just know."
Yeah, she's-
it's interesting.
exactly.
The
She's
people
like,
closest,
I know I want to try.
yeah, the people closest to Will in the movie, Skylar and Sean McGuire, they both have that internal conviction. And they both have what he doesn't, in the sense that they just know and they just trust themselves. They go ahead and follow that. So I'm glad in time it seemed to rub off on our little Willie there, and was able to head west.
Yeah, it is pretty poetic of a movie,
Yeah.
Like I said, some of my favorite things about it, like I love the fact that the boys wrote it, Matt and Ben.
Yeah.
Really good writing. Like the characters are well thought out, and just good dialogue all around. So it's just a good movie. You know what I mean? It's just like just a well done movie.
It's the one that we need.
Like a lot of dialogue. Like I said, there's no special effects and stuff. It's nothing crazy.
No
It's just,
CGI.
yeah, this is
no
just people-
AI.
yeah, it compels you or it captivates you just from the way they talk.
Oh,
and that's what I like.
Yeah.
That's why I loved it.
This movie's so quotable too. I mean,
It
between
is.
how do you like them apples, between why shouldn't I work for the NSA?
It's not about you mathematical dick.
It's about no more shenanigans, no more tomfoolery, no more ballyhoo. I mean, come on. It's so good. Like the amount of lore that is built into this movie is only rivaled for me by The Big Lebowski. Like back when I was in high school, I was taking AP English, and we sat for the AP test, and one of my friends knew that, like, for some reason the AP credit wasn't going to be able to transfer to his college, so he didn't give a shit about the test. So he sat there, and for like one of the huge essays at the end that your grade was pretty much predicated upon for this AP test, whatever the prompt was, instead of answering the prompt, he just wrote word for word based off of memory the "Why shouldn't I work for the NSA" speech that Will gave.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hit the hash pipe and join the National Guard. I could be elected president.
I want to figure this out, and the coordinates are going to come down to some
rebel army in North Africa.
Yeah.
I have to say the Boston accents were pretty. I mean, obviously Matt and Ben, they were pretty spot on. The other guys in the crew. Robin Williams was lacking at some points, but he gets a pass for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
Yeah, he always does. What a fucking movie, man.
Good movie, yeah. Good movie. It's so funny how the parallels between, like, I don't know, other movies, AOC.
Dude, this is one of those. How long do you think we're going to be relating every day-to-day event to the OC?
Another 4 weeks.
You think 4 weeks? Yeah,
Probably
I think
longer.
It's going to take us well into the spring.
Yeah. Need something else to fixate on.
I know. Yeah, seriously, we got to get a move on here.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you had to say about the movie before we?
One last thing. The music in it. The score from Danny Elfman, and then Elliott Smith's prominent use in the movie, really special. I know at the time this movie did a lot to popularize Elliott Smith on a national scale. Maybe more so than he had anticipated, but an integral part of the movie, undoubtedly, and probably the first time that I had heard Elliott Smith. I can't imagine I was listening to Elliott Smith before the age of 14 and before watching Good Will Hunting. I wasn't able to get it at the time, but
right. Even if you didn't know who he was, obviously you heard it.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I mean, I could go on and on talking about different quotes of this movie, or different scenes that I think are hilarious.
Right.
But I mean, that's more on the lore side, which I think everybody should be free to develop their own lore.
Yeah.
And we've developed a lot of this with our podcast community. We've got a lot of lore, so no shortage of that.
Yeah. So if you're out there listening and you have never seen this movie, first off, that's pretty
almost congratulations. That
incredible. I was about to say incredible work.
That's an accomplishment.
That means you still get to watch it for the first time, which is great. Something that me and Chris will never be able to do again. So take the time and watch the movie, because It's very rewatchable, you know?
Oh
It's a
yeah.
good one to go back and take a look. So do that. We wouldn't steer you wrong. And I think it's time for some songs of the week.
I believe it is time for some songs of the week. Do you have one?
Oh, yeah. I always got one.
Yeah, you do.
I got one. I don't think we actually talked about this. And I don't
Let's
think
talk about it.
Let's talk about it. I don't think that we've talked about this song. I maybe I brought it up because it came on a few times, some playlists, something, you know, just popped up.
Right.
And kind of surprised me how much I liked it. But, and I've heard it before, but You're the One by Greta Van Fleet.
Oh yeah.
You know it?
I do know this one. This was off their second full-length album, I think. This was
like Anthem of the
Anthem of the Peaceful Army. I like this song a lot, man.
It's a big song and it's really good. And I didn't feel like it, you know, people always like
people love to shit on Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, obviously.
We like them. This is a safe song.
Yeah. And I listened to it and I never once thought to myself, like, this is a ripoff Led Zeppelin. You know, I never once thought
that.
like,
and even if it was, who cares?
Like, I was just saying, like, in the beginning when it first happened, you know, people said that, thought that, but like, I didn't think that once, and I had a great time listening. So I'm like, hell yeah. Like, it was just really good. And I was like, I think I'm going to go back into them and listen a little bit. And I think I was talking to, I think it was Andrew maybe, and said like, yeah, people get all pissed that it sounds like, you know, Robert Plant or whatever, Jimmy Page, the music. And it's like, good for them. Like,
seriously.
I was like,
yeah.
shit.
And I remember, cause we were both,
why are we mad?
Yeah. Like
know?
it was our last year of college. And I remember, when, From the Fires, which was their first release, came out, and Highway Tune was like their first single from it. And I remember the discourse around it was, holy fucking shit, these teenagers from Michigan are Led Zeppelin reincarnate. How cool is that? And then somewhere between there and like their second album, it was like, oh, they're ripping off Led Zeppelin, like they suck. But that From the Fires album they put out was incredible. Like, you remember those songs? Like their cover of Meat on the Ledge, Flower Power, dude? Like, crazy.
Dude, it was good stuff. And you're right, it happens so
Edge of
fast.
Darkness,
Like,
I think that's what one was called. Like, man, they were good. I listened to that so often my senior year of college. And it you know, takes me right back.
It's funny, yeah. People were like, yeah, they're like, they're just like Led Zeppelin. This is great. And then it was like,
It's like, fuck yeah.
Posers. And then they're like posers. And then you're like in between, like, well, which is it?
Yeah. Everything's been done. So just like let people have fun. And it sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Frusciante said, no one actually owns the music that they produce.
Exactly. Yeah.
The creativity.
We're still not done with Frusciante, everybody. Don't worry.
No, we're not. Frusciante's not done with us. Frusciante's not done with us either.
We're in the opening act.
There's a lot. I feel like I'm going to learn a lot from that man in the next year.
Yeah, me too. I look forward to having some experiences with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Your turn, Chris. What's
my
your
turn. This may be a couple of weeks premature, but I really just couldn't resist. My song of the week is going to be something called Life is a Song by Patrick Park. And this is notable because it is the final song used in the television series The OC, which you may have heard of. The final montage of time passing and the gang going on to all of their respective endeavors. This dude, I am not gonna. I mean, this is a safe place. I'm always honest with people on here. Like, I fucking teared up when this song came on at the end of the OC. Like, it was a late night. I was looking forward to the finale for so long, and like at the end, I knew it was coming, and yeah, I fucking cried a little bit.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
This one was perfect. We build our house of cards and then we wait for it to fall. Always forget how strange it is just to be alive at all. Those are the last lyrics for that. I'm just like, holy shit, man. Like,
dude, it's a good one. I can't wait to go listen to that again. I might watch the end of the last scene. I know you posted it a couple days ago.
It was received very well too. People liked it. It resonated.
People get it.
People get it, man.
People understand it, or maybe, you know, yeah, they just respect it at least, you know.
You just gotta watch 3 seasons of the OC.
Yeah, fuck. Whew. Good stuff. I'm sad. I'm like sad thinking about it, man. It would be so cool to rip a few episodes, but
Yeah, me too.
time of life has passed.
Yeah, I'll come back to it inevitably. But you, I forgot about this. We didn't talk about this yet. You had a kind of an OC event tie-in earlier this week. You saw Petey for the second time live. You went to Nashville to see him.
Yeah, I can't believe that we totally forgot about that. Yeah,
we were just ripping and roaring to talk Good Will Hunting.
We were so excited. Yeah. So on Tuesday we had the opportunity to go see Petey in Nashville, and it was really good. First time seeing him as an opener. The other time was in Ventura, and they opened for Manchester.
Right, Manchester Orchestra.
Manchester Orchestra, sorry. And so I went with my good buddy Andrew, and it was solid. It was Tuesday. We got up there, and like we got up there early at 6:00. So right when doors opened, there was a tailgate brewery right next to it. So we got some pizza, and we were like parked right across the street, and it was really nice, really easy. And the venue's really sweet. It's at the Brooklyn Bowl, which I've seen the front bottoms at before. Just crazy because there's the bowling alley is like right next to it, and there's actually a second story bowling, which looked like would be really, really cool. It costs like $300, I think, to do a lane.
Oh wow!
Which I guess if you get like 8 people and you get a free concert, I don't know, it might work out. But anyway, it was great. He closed with "Freedom to Fuck Off," and his encore was "Don't Tell the Boys." And it was electric. The whole thing, man. He was really jamming. There was a few times where they kind of did a little extended jam, and he started playing. And I was just like, man, he's out there living his dream, playing the music he loves, and yeah, it was awesome. I felt like I got to go meet him afterwards. I stuck around, and probably was annoying to the tour manager. Probably not, but if I felt like I was like, what do I do here? They said, and went and said, hey, what's up? And yeah, he's just a cool dude. He's just a good dude, and that's why I'm happy for him, because he's just living a dream of playing music in front of people. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. It was good. Go see go see the bands you want to see, and be happy.
Make some memories.
Exactly. Yeah, we drove home. We got back at like 2 a.m. I think, or 1:30.
It was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. I love to hear that. So that'll do it for another week of the Grunge Bible podcast. We will be back next week with a topic to be determined as the springtime rolls on. Well, is it springtime yet? Not really. Kind of.
I think it's March 22nd.
Okay, so we're wrapping winter up here. We're almost done with it. But thank you, Ethan, for your time. I had fun talking about this movie. It's always interesting when we pick topics like this that mean so much to us. It can kind of be challenging to get your hands on it and get your arms around the topic, but
concise manner.
Yeah, hopefully we did well enough this week.
Right.
It's hard to say.
If not, like I say, we'll do better next week. Come back and check us out.
Same time next week, knuckleheads.
That's right. Time for it's like 118-hour break.
Good night, Canada.
Yeah. All right, guys. See you later. Rock and roll.
Take care.